Before you even realize it, life starts to feel heavier than it should. You wake up with a knot in your chest, wondering why anxiety hits you even on the days when everything seems fine. You have a job, people who care about you, goals you're working toward, yet something inside still feels unsettled, unsure, or strangely incomplete. It's confusing because from the outside nothing is wrong, but inside something feels tight, restless, or out of place. This silent tension is what many people carry without ever understanding where it comes from. And this video begins by uncovering a deeper truth. Anxiety isn't always triggered by problems. Sometimes it emerges from the internal pressure we build while trying to hold everything together. It's not the stress you can point at, it's the stress that quietly grows beneath the surface. To understand why this happens, we turn to one of the most powerful ideas in Buddhist psychology, Sankaradaka, the suffering, created by internal formations, mental habits, and emotional patterns that shape how we experience the world. Even people who seem successful, peaceful, or happy on the outside carry these hidden tensions. Sankaras are the thoughts you suppress, the emotions you don't process, the expectations you place on yourself, and the identities you're trying to maintain. When these unexamined patterns pile up, anxiety becomes unavoidable, not because your life is bad, but because your inner world is overloaded. In this introduction, we peel back the layers of that invisible weight, the guilt you never named, the fear you brushed aside, the pressure to appear fine. By the end, you'll understand why anxiety appears even in moments when you think it shouldn't, and you'll see the path toward releasing the inner formations that quietly shape your suffering. This is not about avoiding life, it's about finally meeting yourself with honesty, clarity, and compassion. Many people look successful on the outside but feel anxious on the inside. This confusion creates guilt. I should be happy, so why am I not? Sankaradaka explains this hidden suffering. It's the stress created by mental formations, the stories, expectations, fears, and habits we carry within us. Even when life looks stable, the mind can trap us in loops of comparison, pressure, and imagined danger. Happiness becomes something we should feel, not something we actually experience. This chapter explores how the mind creates invisible pressure by replaying old patterns, unfinished emotions, and fears of losing what we already have. Anxiety often comes not from what's happening, but from what the mind thinks might happen. Once you understand that anxiety does not mean you are broken, only overwhelmed, you can begin to see it clearly. Sankaradaka teaches that internal suffering is not a sign of weakness, it's a natural part of being human. By learning to observe these mental formations without letting them take over, you begin the journey to a calmer life. This chapter sets the foundation. Anxiety is not the opposite of happiness. It often hides beneath it. Sankaradaka is one of the deepest forms of suffering described in Buddhist psychology. It refers to the discomfort created by our own mental conditioning, thoughts, assumptions, habits, expectations, and inherited beliefs. Even when external life is peaceful, our internal world may be full of turbulence. This chapter explains why people feel anxious. Despite having relationships, money, opportunities, or comfort, the mind doesn't respond to reality. It responds to its conditioning. If you were raised around stress, criticism, insecurity, or pressure, your mind learns to stay alert even when nothing is wrong. This is why happiness doesn't automatically erase anxiety. The mind still reacts to old patterns. You'll learn how Sankaradaka keeps you stuck in the "what if" cycle. What if I lose this? What if someone gets disappointed? What if it all falls apart? Understanding this helps dissolve the shame around anxiety. You're not ungrateful, you're conditioned. And conditioning can be unlearned. This chapter teaches how awareness becomes the first tool for breaking these mental loops, and why simply achieving goals doesn't bring peace unless the mind itself is understood and softened. One of the strangest realities is that the more you achieve, the more anxious you can become. Success brings responsibility, expectations, and the fear of losing what you've built. This phenomenon is deeply connected to Sankaradaka, the mental habits that cling to control and certainty. In this chapter, you'll discover why people who have everything often feel unsafe inside. When life improves, your mind raises the stakes. You start thinking, I can't fail now, or I hope nothing ruins this. Instead of enjoying success, you begin guarding it. This creates invisible pressure, the pressure to maintain your reputation, income, relationships, performance, or lifestyle. This inattention often shows up as sleepless nights, overthinking, hyperawareness, and emotional exhaustion. Many people confuse this with a lack of gratitude, but the root cause is deeper. The mind is trying to protect what it values, but in doing so, it creates suffering. This chapter helps the viewer understand that fear after success is normal. Your brain is wired to spot threats, not celebrate achievements. Once you see this clearly, you stop blaming yourself and begin working with your mind instead of fighting it. Expectations from family, society, career, or even yourself can become a powerful source of hidden anxiety. Many people who appear happy on the outside carry a quiet pressure to maintain that image. Sankara dukkha shows up here as the mind's tendency to create rigid narratives. I must be perfect. I must not disappoint anyone. I must stay strong. These stories become heavy chains. The more you try to uphold expectations, the more you suppress your real emotions. Suppression creates internal chaos, anxiety, emotional tightness, irritability, and the feeling of losing control. In this chapter, we explore how these expectations form in childhood and solidify over time. You'll learn why many adults feel anxious despite doing everything right. The truth is that expectations often create a constant fear of failure or judgment. The mind starts living for approval, not authenticity. This chapter guides viewers through the realization that expectations are mental formations, not absolute truths. When you question them gently, they begin to loosen. When you stop trying to be everything for everyone, anxiety starts to fade. True peace begins when you allow yourself to be human, not perfect. Anxiety often comes from emotions we never fully felt: sadness, anger, fear, shame, or disappointment. These emotions become emotional residue stored in the mind and body. Sankara dukkha describes how these leftover emotions influence our reactions today. You may have a good life, but still feel on edge because your mind is replaying unresolved experiences from the past. This chapter explains why suppressed emotions do not disappear, they transform into anxiety. If you grew up without emotional safety, your mind learned to stay alert. If you were told to stay strong, you learned to hide your feelings. If you faced sudden losses or trauma, your mind developed protective habits that stay even after life improves. Emotional residue creates hypervigilance. Your body stays in a low-level state of danger even when you're safe. You'll learn how to identify signs of unresolved emotions: tight chest, racing thoughts, constant worry, sudden irritability, or the feeling that something bad might happen. This chapter teaches that healing anxiety isn't about becoming tougher. It's about allowing buried emotions to be seen and released. When emotional residue clears, clarity and calm naturally rise. Overthinking is one of the strongest expressions of Sankara dukkha. The mind becomes caught in patterns of analyzing, predicting, imagining, and replaying. Even small decisions feel heavy because the mind is afraid of choosing wrong. This chapter explains why overthinking is not a personality trait. It's a survival strategy learned over time. The mind believes that if it can predict every outcome, it can avoid pain. But this habit creates the opposite effect. It drains energy, increases fear, and blocks joy. You'll learn how overthinking keeps people stuck in imaginary scenarios instead of real experiences. It takes the mind out of the present moment and into a world of possibilities that may never happen. Even when life is good, the mind whispers, "What if something goes wrong?" You'll also learn why the mind resists silence. Stillness feels unfamiliar when you've lived in survival mode. This chapter highlights simple awareness-based techniques that help interrupt the overthinking cycle. When you learn to observe thoughts instead of wrestling with them, the mind slowly calms down. Overthinking weakens when you shift from controlling life to experiencing it. Anxiety is not just a mental experience, it lives in the body. Sankara dukkha teaches that the body stores memories, tension, and unprocessed emotions. Even if your mind tells you everything is fine, your body may still feel unsafe. Tight shoulders, clenched jaw, stomach knots, rapid heartbeat, these are signs of stored stress in this chapter. Viewers learn why people who seem happy externally often feel restless internally. The body's nervous system may be stuck in a chronic state of alertness. Long-term stress rewires the body to expect danger. So, even positive experiences can feel overwhelming. You'll discover how childhood environments, traumatic events, or long periods of pressure shape the body's emotional responses. This chapter explains why healing anxiety requires working with the body through breathing, grounding, movement, or relaxation techniques. When the body relaxes, the mind follows. You'll also explore how self-compassion and gentle awareness help release long-held tension. As people reconnect with their bodies, they begin feeling safe again. This chapter shows that real healing is not intellectual, it's embodied. This final chapter guides viewers toward the process of freeing themselves from internal suffering. Sankara dukkha cannot be erased instantly, but it can be understood and gradually dissolved. Peace begins when you stop fighting your mind and start observing it with patience. In this chapter, you'll learn how awareness softens mental formations, how breathing regulates emotional storms, and how simple presence brings the mind back from fear into clarity. You'll explore why peace comes from letting go of expectations, old stories, emotional residue, and the belief that you must control everything. When you release these inner burdens, happiness becomes natural again. You'll learn how small daily practices, mindful pauses, emotional honesty, grounding exercises, and self-kindness help retrain the mind over time. This chapter ends with a reminder: there is nothing wrong with you. Anxiety does not mean you're ungrateful or weak. It means you are human, carrying conditioning that can be healed. When you understand your mind, you no longer fear it, and in that understanding, a quiet freedom begins.